you briefly about the new additions to our football staff. The first one I want to talk to you about is Cody Kennedy. He comes to us from Southern Miss via Tulane. Cody and I coached together at Georgia, coached for a good friend of mine, Willie Fritz, at Tulane. They set school records in rushing. I had coached the tight ends in my career one time in 1996 at Cincinnati. I thought it was a great learning experience for me. I had to learn more about the game other than just the front and the box on defense. And I taught Cody basically into coming here and doing that for us. Outstanding person, outstanding recruiter. And we're awful happy to have him as our new tight end coach. Jamal Ashley will be coaching our D-line. He's from Tulsa. Obviously, you saw what Tulsa did as a team. A lot of that correlated to the defensive line, the way they played. I did not know Jamal, but I watched tape after tape after tape trying to find our new D-line coach, and I love the way his kids played. I've heard some outstanding things about him when I called and asked different folks about him. And so I'm very, very pleased to have him. Obviously, he'll have Oklahoma connections and Dallas connections for us in recruiting. Michael Scherer was the next guy. He'll be our linebacker coach. Michael knows Barry's system, knows it inside and out. He also he went to the field at the Florida game. The kids that we have on our team raved about him and his coaching ability. And again, obviously, he knows the system. He has many ties in Missouri. And so we're going to put him in that area as well as spots in Texas. And then the last guy here is Kenny Guiton, a wide receiver coach. Kenny and Kendall Browse coached together at Houston. Obviously, Browse thought a lot of him. Heard a lot of nice things about him again whenever I talked to some of my colleagues about him, and really excited to have him here. He also obviously has Texas connections in recruiting. And I'll say this, that recruiting has to get better for us. And I believe that these guys that we hired are going to help us in that area along with coaching on the football field. So with that, we'll just visit a little bit.
Alyssa, you want to get us started?
Hi, Coach. Good to see you. Wanted to ask first, obviously the big announcement yesterday was Arkansas State, and I know that Hunter had kind of really talked about how you wanted to get as many SEC teams in Fayetteville to play as possible. So can you kind of talk us through how all of that went down in the addition of the Red Wolves?
Well, I wanted to play as many SEC games here, like you said. A big part of that, Alyssa, is for recruiting. So we can get recruits in here. We play Missouri the last game of the year. We certainly want an opportunity to see the kids before we go out on the road recruiting. Certainly you can get kids here that you can recruit in classes that are not the immediate class that you're recruiting, that you can talk to, where as you go out on the road, you cannot. You can, obviously, if they're in the current class you're recruiting, but you can't the other way. I felt like we would lose a huge opportunity. That's basically it. And Arkansas State, we're excited to have them scheduled. I want to be the coach at Arkansas when we go down there. I don't want to answer a whole lot of questions. If I'm not the coach, we'll let the next guy do it. But I want to be the coach, and that's the plan. and we're excited to continue our relationship with Little Rock. I think that's a wonderful thing down there, and we're looking forward to playing Pine Bluff down there this year. So that's kind of how it went down, and I visited with Hunter about it, and I know there was a lot to getting the Arkansas State game, but we're excited about it.
Coach.
Yeah, Coach, I was wondering, I noticed with several of your new assistants, Coach Guiton, Coach Kennedy, Coach Scherer, all those guys are pretty young. I finished playing within the last decade. Were you intentionally trying to bring in some young guys, kind of like how you had Sam Carter on your initial staff, or was it just kind of how it played out?
No, it's really how it played out. I was trying to bring in recruiters, and most of the time, if you're a good recruiter, you're a good coach, because recruiting is work and coaching is work. And to get Arkansas where we all believe that it should be and where it's going to be, we have to continue to improve our recruiting. And so that was a big part of all these hires, along with their coaching ability. But if you want to change your room, you got to go get the players to do that. We can't just go, Jamil Walker, you get these guys bigger and nastier and stronger and all those things. We've got to help him as well, and I think these guys will.
Scotty.
Yeah, Coach, my question was kind of along the same lines. With those 4 new hires, I think the average age of those guys was around 31. What, in your opinion, makes for a quality young coach?
Well, he probably has to have maturity above his age. Got to be an old, whatever his age is. Certainly a guy that has a work ethic to him, hungry person to learn. Does help, like with Mike, that he's in Barry's system for several years. But I'm not for sure if age was a dictator of being a good coach. Hell, everybody'd be my age, and we'd have a whole staff of 60-year-olds. I'm 59, but I just want I want a guy who can coach, a guy who can recruit, and I don't really care about how old he is. Sam Carter is one of the best recruiters we have and coaches on our staff, and he's not very old. So, I didn't consciously go out to hire age, to be honest with you. I went out to hire good men that could represent our state and our program the right way.
Bob.
Hey, Sam, we know some big-time schools came after Barry in the offseason. How important was it for you guys to keep him? And were you ever worried he might be tempted to leave? And how does your all's friendship, I know it's a business, it's a bottom line business, but how does your friendship maybe help make it easier to retain Barry?
I think in coaching, I think it's big whenever you keep whoever you want to keep. Barry was one of those guys. Now, he's a very, very important part of our football staff. But it was, if that can be an easy thing to get done, Barry Odom would be the guy that you can get it done with, because he's matter of fact, and those calls are hard to make to a head coach when you have another job offer to you that might be financially a lot more, and you don't want to just call up and say, hey, I need a raise. Those are hard calls, and Barry and I have a strong friendship, and those things happen. He visited with me about it. Thank goodness for Hunter Yurachek, and I called him, explained the situation, and I don't know, it might have been 15, 20-minute deal, and it was done. And the greatest thing you can say about Barry is you can trust him. And once he says, hey, I'm going to stay, then that's what he's going to do. And I never once worried about whomever was, because he's going to get offers every year. That's what he's going to do. And you want your coaches to get offers from other teams. You want other teams to want your coaches. But Barry's going to get that every year, and we'll sit here next year and we'll have to deal with it again. We dealt with it his first year. We dealt with it this year, and I'm sure we'll deal with it next year. But I'd sure as heck glad that we have him and we deal with those issues than if we didn't.
Tom.
Hey, yeah, Sam, I'm curious, did Barry have any input into the hiring? And also, it's a tough decision to let coaches go too. What went into the changes that you made?
Well, everybody has input on everybody that we hire. I ask the staff if they have somebody, if there's a position available. I ask the staff, if they are high on someone, to give me their name, let me do my research. But I knew that Mike, knew everything, at least from the linebacker position, about the defense that Barry's been running, and obviously it's multiple. And he was here as our quality control guy, and again, our players raved about him, and he coached them for that week, so that part of it to me was a pretty easy hire. The other fellas that aren't here anymore, they're all really good people, really good men. And we sure hope that they're able to land wherever they want and get whatever job they want, because they're all fine men.
Clay.
Sam, I'm curious with the defensive line hire and Coach Ashley. I know that, Bill Young's his mentor, whether you knew Bill, and what you saw maybe in pass pressure that Coach Ashley can help your program.
Actually, yeah, I coached with Bill at Oklahoma in 1997, and what a fine man he is. But Bill basically took Jamal. Bill helped him, and so that's all I need to know. And if you watched actually Coach Kennedy, Cody played Tulsa. When he was at Tulane, they played Tulsa. And when I was thinking about him, I picked up the phone, talked to Cody about it. I said, "How do you?" Because I watched the game. I said, "How?" He said, "They're well coached. The one thing about the defense is they fly around, and they play hard. And obviously Jamal's had some draft picks that he's coached as well. And I thought he could really help us in recruiting. So they can get to the quarterback. A lot of things going into getting the quarterback is the guys running at the quarterback. It's not necessarily schematics. It's who do you have over there and how hard do they play and what kind of technique you can teach them to get to the quarterback. And I think he'll bring players in here, and I know that he'll have their attention because he's a really good football coach, and he's a very dominant figure. I mean, he's a big guy that, very imposing type guy.
Trey Biddy.
Coach, it seemed like the news with Coach Stepp going back home started leaking out, and then like right after that, the Kenny Guiton stuff. So it feels like that was a very fast move. I was curious on just how that played out and your impressions of him so far. In addition, one of the best quotes I read about Cody Kennedy was from, I believe, NOLA.com, where it said you could drop him off in Saudi Arabia, and 2 weeks later he'd come back with 36 new friends. Is that the kind of impression that you have on him as well?
Well, I love him. I mean, I love the guy. And he, when I was at Georgia, I got a lot of credit for recruiting some of the old linemen that he recruited. So I knew what type of person he was and what type of recruiter he is and what type of coach he was. So that was the easiest one of all of them, to be honest with you. On Coach Stepp's situation, I was made aware that he was going to visit with Coach Beamer, and so I went to work not knowing what he would decide to do, and I went to work trying to find the wide receiver. And so, all these hires, guys, it's not like a guy leaves and a guy comes in, usually you have a few days to work, and find it. My biggest thing in replacing these coaches was I wanted to make sure I had somebody basically in the building or close to in the building by the time y'all found out that we was losing somebody. And the reason is because of the transfer portal. And I didn't beat you. You guys beat me. But I wanted to, simply because I'm concerned about our players sitting here a week without a coach, especially in these times of transfer. So I went to work fast on every one of these hires, knowing what was going to happen. And so with Step, it was the same thing, that we'd been in conversation. As soon as I found out that there might be a possibility that he's leaving, I went to work on trying to find his replacement. And I think the day that he announced he was leaving, the day we announced we had a new wide receiver coach. That's no disrespect to anybody. That's me being concerned about the transfer portal.
Nate?
Yeah, Sam, in the past, you said that all of your coaches recruit Arkansas. Does that hold for these new coaches too? And do any of them have any experience in recruiting within Arkansas?
Well, we had a meeting over that this morning, actually, Nate, and we're certainly going to put all 10 of our guys in the state, just like what we had said last year, but we can't, we obviously didn't get out in the state, but you can phone call the state. Arkansas experience, I'm not positive that any of them have had Arkansas as one of their primary recruiting states, but I think several of them have been in here recruiting Arkansas kids before.
Is that a concern at all? Or you feel you're all pretty well versed in the state?
I'm not concerned about recruiting our state. No, I'm really not. I have a good relationship with the high school coaches here in the state. We'll get them all called. As a matter of fact, starting Monday, we'll start building our new coaches' relationships in their part of our state. So no, I'm not concerned that we don't have what I would consider years of experience in our state.
Nikki?
Yeah, Coach Kennedy had just been hired not too many weeks before at Southern Miss. So was it hard to get him to come to Arkansas to change, position groups? And was he just like automatically the guy that you thought of when the position was opening up? And then also, what's your status on new recruiting director?
Okay, Nikki, you always have some nice questions. Number one, Cody Kennedy was the only guy considered for the tight end job. I do want to say this, that we've had guys from the NFL, we've had guys from all over major conferences that have applied for jobs here at Arkansas. So it's a very, very exciting job, exciting place, and the Hog is strong. But with Cody, that was the guy. And I wanted to hire him, and I really believe that you guys will be really happy that we did, and I know I will be. And your other question was, the recruiting coordinator. We're going to go to work on that. I've got about 6 guys probably right now, 5 to 6, Nikki, that I'm going to start Zooming with starting Monday. And, recruiting, it always goes on, but if I was going to lose somebody as a recruiting director, this would probably be about the time to do it. We didn't sign anybody yesterday. And so I'm not as concerned about that, because we do have folks still in that department that are working. But I do need to get, and I don't really know what I'm going to do with it yet. I need to talk to some different guys about how they're running their recruiting department for me to make sure I have a couple of guys I can hire, or ladies or what have you. And I want to make sure I do it right. So this one may be maybe by the end of next week, maybe Nikki, maybe even middle of maybe 10 days before I really decide on who we're going to go with in that position.
Dudley.
Coach, I imagine it was a little bit different National Signing Day for you yesterday, but also did y'all talk to a lot of 2022 guys or whatever you could?
We have been, we did a little bit different this year. Instead of taking a position board, this year we took it state by state. I thought, obviously with our state being the first and then bordering states in our recruiting, how we've done it. We've been on the phone constantly since January with these guys. Dudley, I don't know that yesterday was any more specific with the 2022s than we have. Certainly, we know who we're going after in the state of Arkansas. We've already had Zoom meetings with those guys, and we had another one last weekend after our time, after Arkansas time, and then we're going to have another one this weekend too.
Kyle.
Hey, Coach, you touched on playing A-State and UAPB, but I wonder more broadly what your thoughts are about playing for the next 5 years in Little Rock, because you're certainly no stranger to, what that atmosphere could look like at War Memorial Stadium.
Well, I'm going to kind of defer all that to Hunter. Certainly, we know that we have Pine Bluff, Western Carolina, and A-State over there in the next 3 of the 5 years, in the odd years and when we go over there. And we'll see how it goes. I'm not the know-all of whether we should play 5 games over there or 1 game or all that stuff. I'm just a football coach. I just knew that going over there and playing an SEC school, I felt like it would hurt our recruiting because we couldn't see the players. I'm all for whatever the state and Hunter decides to do in the future at Little Rock.
Last one, Joey.
Sam, hi. This is a question from Columbus, Ohio, where Kenny Guiton was a popular quarterback for the Buckeyes a few years back and has had a pretty good rise in coaching. When you were looking to hire him to your staff, what stood out the most to you about Kenny, just his profile, his background? What kind of jumped off the page to you the most?
Well, I think the first thing, Joey, is that he worked with Coach Briles and Kenny and Kendall had a good relationship. And to be honest with you, Kendall jumped up on the table for him, and that kind of got him in the door. And then I love the guy. I mean, he's really mature. He's a recruiter. He's already won our players over. Just a very charismatic, exciting guy to be around. And I felt that way on the telephone with him when I was interviewing him. And what a wonderful family. And I just think he fit. I think he's an Arkansas fit, and I know he's a great recruiter, and we need some more recruiters in the state of Texas.
All right, that'll wrap us up with Coach Pittman. Thanks, Coach.